That good-for-nothing wife. Just ditch that woman before we get in real trouble. As soon as they thought I was asleep, my husband and his mother completely changed their attitudes. They left home, but claiming they didn't want to lose their assets, they shamelessly returned and began causing chaos. When I confronted them with reality. My name is Daisy. I'm 30 years old. I got engaged to my husband Brad after dating him for 5 years. We were living with his parents in their house. Initially, we had agreed to buy our own house when we have our first child. It's been nearly 2 years since then, but we haven't been blessed with a child, and we're still living with his parents. Living with my husband, his mother, and his younger brother, I was often the subject of concern from those around me. My parents lived far away, a distance that required air travel, and they always expressed regret that they could not help me. However, my husband was always kind to me, and I had a good relationship with my mother-in-law. So far removed from the typical mother-in-law, daughter-in-law issues that it felt like they didn't apply to us. Because of this, I was very happy. One day, I got into an accident and broke a bone. I was hospitalized and couldn't move on my own. In the early days after the accident, my husband and mother-in-law visited me daily and worried for me. Now, they only visit once a week. I was grateful they even came to visit. But the next day after the doctor told me I might have lasting injuries. She can't do housework or anything, but she's going to cost us more than ever. What a useless wife. If she has lingering issues, having kids is even more out of the question, right? Yeah, maybe. Now that it's come to this, I think it's a good thing we don't have kids. And if she stays bedridden forever, I'll have to do all the housework and care for her? I didn't agree to marry for this. Wasn't it to do the housework and caregiving? If she hadn't gotten into an accident, she could have continued as our maid. What a disappointment. Before this becomes too troublesome, please get rid of that woman. I'll get it. I'll divorce her quickly. Thinking I was asleep, the two of them had this conversation in my hospital room. I was nothing more than a maid and a caregiver to them. After that, the attitudes of my husband and my mother-in-law towards me became blatantly cold. Your husband hardly comes, does he? He must be searching for a new woman. If you only had a child, you could have kept him by the skin of your teeth. My husband wasn't even coming once a week anymore. My mother-in-law seemed to just be passing time by saying nasty things. My brother-in-law, however, was doing the laundry and checking if I needed anything, and was generally very helpful. He visited me nearly every day and even took me to the open-air area in my wheelchair when I felt suffocated by my long hospitalization. I was tired from physical therapy and wanted to give up at times, but I think I've made it this far thanks to my brother-in-law. His presence was that much of a help to me. I'm not getting worse, and physical therapy is going well, but it's still hard to say anything about any potential lingering issues. When I told my husband and mother-in-law about this, seriously? See, I told you we should have gotten rid of her sooner. The two of them started arguing over me. What are you two even saying? Aren't you being too harsh on Daisy, who's been taking care of our house and our father all this time? In reality, I had been taking care of my father-in-law for 5 years while dating my husband. When we started dating, we were told, "Why don't you live together, since you are both going to get married anyway?" Yeah, it's a great deal. We can save money and live together, and then get married when we're settled. When I hesitated, they said, "It's okay, we have plenty of rooms and we won't invade your privacy. Plus, you don't need to pay rent. You want to marry my son, right?" How could I refuse? "But in return, we have a favor to ask, Daisy. While you're working from home, can you look after our father who needs care? It's only for 4 to 5 hours during the day when my mother's out for her part-time job. We also have my brother, so the two of you can work together." My brother-in-law was also working from home, so he and I teamed up to take care of my father-in-law in the house. My father-in-law and brother-in-law were very close. My father-in-law had a hobby of collecting furniture and even had a separate house just for it. My brother-in-law and I always enjoyed hearing about his hobby. My father-in-law loved his caring son, Reagan. Eventually, my father-in-law's health began to decline, and after years of care, he passed away. After that, my husband proposed to me, saying, "Thank you for always taking care of my father. Let's continue to be together. Let's get married." Despite having worked hard on housework and caregiving, the moment I became immobile, my husband and mother-in-law's attitude was as if I was worthless. Even I, normally composed, was infuriated. "If you're going to divorce me, please pay what you're supposed to." "Well, I don't want any trouble, so I'll give you the house. Let's waive other division of property." I wondered if he would really give me the house, but since my father-in-law had left an inheritance, a lot, and it was divided among my mother-in-law, Brad, and Reagan, the inheritance amounted to approximately $300,000 each, so he seemed to have enough assets. Reagan was told to handle all paperwork with the executor, and he had to visit the court several times, which was quite a hassle. "No way! We can't give away the house!" "If we divide the property, I'll lose half my savings. It's just a wastefully large house in the countryside. Even if we give it away, it's not an issue. Even at the highest estimate, it's only worth about $100,000. Plus, various fees will be deducted when we sell it. It's cheaper than losing half my savings." "Well, if you say so, Brad. But what if she demands more later? What if rumors spread in the neighborhood because we abandoned her?" The two debated what to do with me. "Then I'll take her in." Reagan, Brad's brother, interrupted. "Why would you go out of your way to do that?" "Ah, you've been interested in Daisy, haven't you? That's why you're so willing. You can have her if you want, but she's no longer of any use to us. Don't ask to take Daisy and the house back later, okay?" "Why would I? I just hope you won't come asking for money later. And remember, you can't return damaged goods." Brad and Reagan signed papers and arranged to formally change the property title through a lawyer. "I'll take out some money from my savings. So why don't you find a younger, healthier, and prettier woman to marry and build a better house?" "Sounds good. Hey, Daisy, get a lawyer to file for our divorce quickly." They said they'd stay in a hotel for a while and left the room. Reagan and I, left behind, silently saw them off. I had to find a lawyer to file for our divorce first. Reagan helped me to file for the divorce, and in a few days, Brad and I became complete strangers. A week later, Brad and my mother-in-law packed their belongings and left the house. It was strange that Reagan, Brad's brother, continued to visit me. "You don't have to visit anymore. We're strangers now that I've divorced your brother. There's no need for you to worry about your former sister-in-law." He responded, "I'm doing this because I want to. I didn't get along with you just because you were my brother's wife. We both provided care and did housework together. We've talked a lot more in these 7 years than you ever did with my brother. We're friends, aren't we?" Reagan said with a gentle smile. All I could do was express my thanks and gratitude. A month later, I was discharged from the hospital. Although I had to visit the hospital for physical therapy, I felt relieved to be home after such a long time. Do you think those two will really ever come back? I'm worried they might come back and make me work again. If they come back, I'll drive them away. I can't forgive them for treating you so horribly. Plus, they have no right to return to this house, Reagan reassured. I was still unable to move as before, so Reagan took care of most of the household chores. Fortunately, as I had been working from home as a freelancer, I was able to return to work and contribute financially. Thanks to the bi-weekly physical therapy, I recovered smoothly without any complications. A year later, I was able to live as before, and Reagan and I collaborated on the housework. We spent more time together, syncing our days off to go on trips. Just when I thought our peaceful days would continue, a storm suddenly came. One night, while Reagan and I were eating dinner, the door was knocked, and the intercom rang repeatedly. When I nervously answered, the person on the monitor was Brad. "Hey, open up!" Thinking this noise might disturb the neighbors, I opened the front door and Brad entered the house without hesitation. "What do you want?" "Huh? Why do I have to put up with such an attitude just for coming home? This isn't your home anymore. State your business and leave quickly." "What are you talking about? I'll be living here again from today. Oh, I'm hungry. Hey, Daisy, give me some food." My ex-husband ordered me to serve food. "Hey, cut it out. Why are you here?" "Well, I've spent almost all my money. My mom will be here soon, too. So leave the door unlocked." Seeing that I remained silent, he, "Oh, you're all healed up, huh? That's great. Let's get back together. You must have had a hard time without me." My ex-husband, who still mistakenly believed I loved him, said, approaching me with a disgusting familiarity. The sheer audacity of him made me feel sick. "Stop it. I divorced you. I don't care about you anymore." "Don't get cocky. You've been living on my money all this time, and you can't do anything but housework. Just shut up and do as I say." Brad shouted at me. Just then the door opened and his mother arrived. "You left the door unlocked. That's careless. Oh, what's going on?" "She's been getting cheeky, so I was giving her a bit of education. She's grown thick-skinned in the year we've been away." Once again, Brad and his mother began to make themselves at home, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "Enough is enough. This isn't your home. I'm calling the police." "Oh yeah, about that. This house was originally in your father's name, right? So that means that the heir, including my mother, makes our agreement null and void, doesn't it?" Brad said, shouting such an unreasonable claim. "You promised to give me the house. If you're nullifying that, then everything about the division of property should be nullified as well. Give me half the savings." "Sure, but I don't have it anymore. Didn't I tell you earlier? I've squandered it all. I quit my job, spent it all on booze, fun, investments, you name it." I was taken aback by Brad's words. It was unbelievable that he could have spent such a large sum of money in just 1 year. "Also, I have some debts with consumer finance. About $20,000, I guess. Can you pay for me?" I initially thought he was lying, but his mother confirmed it. "I can't lend you that much money. I'm not asking you to lend it. I'm telling you to pay it. I'm not giving you any money. I'm calling the police. As Reagan dialed the police to report the situation, you've become quite daring in the past year. You're just showing off because Daisy's here. Brad began to wreak havoc in the house, breaking the precious furniture that had been my father-in-law's keepsake. His mother also started to destroy the furniture, laughing as she did so. How could you do something so terrible? That's the closet my father-in-law cherished. Shut up. Brad and his mother continued their rampage, ignoring my pleas. About 10 minutes later, when the police arrived, I explained the situation to them. This is quite a mess. Let's hear your side of the story. Huh? What's wrong with me breaking things in my own house? That's right. We're just crushing things we don't need. What's the problem? When the police seemed unsure how to respond to this, Reagan stepped in. This house has never belonged to these two. It's under Daisy's name. Huh? What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Actually, before he passed away, our father-in-law left a will through a lawyer. Of course, you wouldn't know. You handed over what you were told and left the rest to Reagan. So this house was yours from the beginning? When I confirmed this, Brad and his mother stood dumbfounded. So this isn't your property, then? Oh, hold on. But I'm her ex-husband. We're like family, so she'll forgive me, right? Don't make me laugh. You're a stranger once you're an ex. I don't even know that you were in contact with another woman before our divorce was finalized, and who treated me like a maid, if not you. No, that's not what happened. I was just going along with what my mom said. She ordered me to do all this. Brad, what are you saying? Your failed business? Your failed relationships with young girls? Your gambling and debts? Aren't these all your doing? According to his mother, Brad had been trying to marry a young woman after our divorce. He also quit his job to start his own business, but it failed in just a month. Even with money, Brad was rejected by the unemployed man and became reckless, going around playing and gambling, saying that he had money and could afford it. He had said that he had almost no money left, and it seemed that it was indeed nearly zero. You brought this upon yourself. All this is Brad's fault, so at least forgive me. Despite their previous condescending attitudes towards me, they both desperately pleaded for forgiveness, trying to shift the blame and groveling. This was truly ridiculous. No, I won't forgive either of you. And this isn't something from the past, is it? You were treating me like a servant until a moment ago, right? Not leaving when I asked you to leave is illegal. And since the furniture collected by my late father-in-law is now mine, you'll need to compensate me for that. But... All right. We will compensate you. Just please don't get the police involved. You wouldn't want me to go to jail, would you? I actually don't care at all. By the way, we're married. It turned out I was married to my brother-in-law, Reagan. Or rather, he was my former brother-in-law, now my husband. You? It hasn't even been a year and you've moved on to another man? My own brother at that? What are you talking about? You moved on before you were even divorced, didn't you? You wouldn't return Daisy to me no matter how many times I asked. Stop clinging to the past already. Brad was left speechless. I don't care anymore. I'll pay for whatever damages there are. How much for my idiot husband's junk? Well, if we calculate roughly, about $100,000. Huh? What? The furniture that my father-in-law had collected was all high-end pieces, made by famous designers. Brad and his mother, who had no interest in these items, seemed to have believed they were just junk. "You're going to compensate for what you've broken, right? We're not sure if we can get the same items, but make sure to pay properly." Brad and his mother, unable to afford such compensation, were distraught. For the time being, the police took the two of them away for trespassing and vandalism. Of course, I didn't forgive them and went ahead with the lawsuit. Afterwards, Brad and his mother, who were desperately seeking help from Reagan, were bluntly rejected, with him saying, "I'm ashamed to even be related by blood." Brad and his mother were likely receiving their just desserts together. And there's one more thing I kept secrets. My father-in-law told me to sell the house and use the money as I wish. Reagan had told me that the price of the house was $100,000, but in reality, the document stated the value of the house around $500,000. It's a good location, so it might sell for a bit more, but for now, Reagan and I decided to take it easy in the house my father-in-law left us, with no plans to sell it. Eventually, we planned to sell the land and build a new house. I had some worries about having children, so after getting married to Reagan, I went to the gynecologist for a checkup, but there were no issues with either Reagan or me. Now, with the troublemakers gone, Reagan and I are living happily together.
A man known as the captain led my father into a small room. I quickly followed behind my dad. The captain, who was smiling gently just moments ago, now looked stern. He stared at both of us, clearly displeased. His voice was deep and intimidating.
"You folks don't belong in first class. It lowers the standard. Please leave. This is my final warning. Please prepare 3 seats in first class for us."
My unyielding father's words made the captain's face turn pale as he called his company for confirmation.
"Well, prepare your seats right away. I'm deeply sorry for the inconvenience."
Turning to that voice, I saw the captain apologizing profusely. What's the true identity of my gentle, helpful father that was revealed during his retirement celebration? My name's BIL. While my friends are getting married one after another, I'm enjoying my life. I'm planning to relax at my parents' house during the summer break. By the way, I heard Mary is expecting her second child. Really? How old is her first one? I think she just had the baby recently. Time flies, huh? When are you planning on it, Belle? Someday. Just make sure you don't rush and end up with the wrong person. Think it through. Even though my parents' house isn't far from my apartment, I've been less eager to visit over the years. Whenever casual conversations turn to marriage and kids, I feel a bit left out. I know my parents mean well and they know I love kids. My dad is retiring at the end of the year. He's always hoped to see his grandkids while he's still healthy, but it seemed that won't be happening anytime soon. Growing up, we moved a lot because of my dad's job. I've always been good with people, but not so good at showing vulnerability. My mom used to tell me to be someone who can help others. I took that to heart, and now I'm the go-to person at work and in my personal life. This made me appear strong, and while men rely on me, they don't often see me romantically. I might be the typical I can live on my own type you see in comics. Where's Dad? He went out shopping. Isn't it a bit late for shopping? You know, Dad, he's probably helping someone out again. Didn't he save a drowning kid once? Yes, I was so worried then. He said he was going shopping and didn't come back for a while. That's scary. Was the kid from our neighborhood? I don't know. I only heard about it from your dad. I see. I hope you find someone like your dad, Belle. Someone who can help others in a pinch. Sure, Mom. When Dad comes back, I've decided to make a special proposal to show my gratitude.
I'm back.
You're late.
Hey, Belle. Welcome back.
Thanks. Where did you go shopping? Dad walked in from the entrance with bags from the local supermarket. It's only a 10-minute drive to the supermarket. It seemed like he took a bit too long for such a short trip. As soon as my mother saw my father, she headed to the kitchen to reheat the prepared meal. I stood up to set the table when my father's cell phone rang.
Hello?
While on the call, my father discreetly stepped out of the living room. I felt something was off about his behavior, but since my mother didn't seem concerned, I brushed it off. After the call, the three of us sat down for dinner, and I brought up a topic. How about we all go on a trip to celebrate your retirement, Dad? I've got some brochures. I put down my fork and pulled out several brochures from my bag. I'm not making a ton of money, so we'll have to stick to places I can afford, but let it be my gift to you. I had started saving a few years ago, thinking I'd use it for either my wedding or my father's retirement. Thanks to that, I had several options, both domestic and international.
Thanks, Belle. Let's take a look later.
Ever since I started working, my respect and gratitude for my parents grew. I understood the challenges of raising a child without any financial struggles, especially after hearing stories from my friends who were parents. I just hoped my parents could feel a fraction of the gratitude I felt for them. I've always wanted to visit Europe. That sounds great. But can you get the time off, Belle? I'll have to plan it out, but I think my colleagues will understand. If we can take a longer break, maybe we can go abroad. Otherwise, a short domestic trip would be fine. Don't worry about me. Let's go wherever you want, Dad. After dinner, we looked through the brochures discussing potential destinations. Every place looked so appealing, with beautiful sceneries and delicious food. This looks delicious, right? Look at this one too.
You two are all about the food, huh?
We laughed and debated, eventually narrowing down our choices to about 5 destinations before deciding to sleep on it. The next day after lunch, as we were enjoying our coffee, my father received another phone call. He answered with a "Hello?" and stepped into the hallway. Has Dad been getting a lot of calls lately? Maybe more recently. He's retiring, so maybe it's work-related. Don't you ever ask who's calling? I don't pry into such things. Don't you get curious? We're not newlyweds. At our age, I don't get upset over a phone call. Is that how it is? That's how it is. It's fine. If something comes up, we'll deal with it then. My mother's calm response was reassuring, but I still felt uneasy. As we were discussing this, my father finished his call and returned. Who was on the phone?
Oh, just someone.
Someone you can't tell us about?
Actually, I was thinking, what if we splurge on hotels and meals but save on flights? What do you think?
That sounds good. But where can we find affordable flights?
I've got a lead on some good deals. Can you trust me with it?
Of course. Sounds good. Right, Belle? Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, Dad. I wasn't entirely convinced, but since my mother wasn't concerned, I decided not to press the issue. I resolved not to question my father's actions any further. The next day, we settled on an international destination and began considering potential dates. At my workplace, vacations are scheduled in rotation. When I proposed the dates to my colleagues, they quickly agreed. When it came time to book, my parents expressed a wish to save my money for the future. So, we agreed that I would pay a bit more than half of the trip's cost. However, my father insisted on handling the flight arrangements, including payment. Time flew as we prepared our passports, packed our suitcases, and researched our destination. Finally, the day before our trip, I left work a bit early and returned to my parents' house. Oh, look at the time! Hearing this, my mother headed to the kitchen to prepare dinner. My father, seemingly following her lead, headed straight for the front door. Where are you off to, Dad?
Just a quick errand.
Will you be back by dinner?
Yeah, I'll be quick. Be right back.
Where did Dad go? I'm not sure. He didn't mention anything about going out today. What should we have for dinner? My mother began preparing dinner, and my unease about my father's behavior grew. However, he returned in about an hour. Where were you?
Oh, just out.
You've been acting strange lately. What's going on?
I'll tell you later. Don't worry about it.
My suspicions grew. But with our celebratory trip starting tomorrow, I didn't want to cause any tension. I decided to prioritize enjoying the trip. On the day of the trip, while my father exchanged our tickets, my mother and I headed to the baggage drop. I'll be right back. Need to use the restroom. Got it. We'll wait here. As I walked to the check-in counter, I spotted my father. He looked tense, seemingly in a disagreement with an airline employee.
We made a reservation.
I'm sorry, but we don't have any record of it.
Just find us 3 seats.
I'm truly sorry, but we don't have any available seats.
That can't be right. There were seats available when I checked yesterday.
I understand your frustration, but we don't have any seats.
This is unacceptable. Please find a solution.
My usually calm father was raising his voice. Suddenly, a tall, tanned man approached. He signaled to the staff and then addressed my father.
Excuse me, sir.
The captain.
What seems to be the problem? We made a reservation, but they are saying it's not in the system. Plus, they're claiming there are no available seats. I even received a confirmation call about the reservation.
I understand. Could you please come with me? The man referred to as the captain gestured to a door on the wall. I quickly followed my father. Once inside the small room, the captain's previously friendly demeanor changed. He looked at my father and me with a displeased expression. His voice was deep and intimidating. You made a reservation to first class, correct?
Yes, that's right. So if there were available seats in first class, there should have been at least 3 available, right?
Do you even know what first class means?
It's not for people dressed like you.
Don't you get it?
Is this how your airline trains its staff? To judge people by their appearance? It's impressive that a captain would come out and insult a customer like this.
I don't care about that. Having someone dressed as shabbily as you in first class would lower our standards. Please leave. We hadn't been told we'd be flying first class, and given the long flight, we had dressed for comfort. Still, the captain's words angered me.
This is your last warning. Prepare 3 seats in first class. If you don't, This might be your last flight.
My usually calm father spoke with such authority. It took me by surprise. The captain looked equally shocked, as if thinking, "What is this guy talking about?"
I'll be in charge of personnel decisions for this airline starting next year, so I'll be the one deciding your fate.
That's impossible.
If you don't believe me, check with your boss. My name is Wilson David.
With such confidence in my father's voice, the captain began making a phone call. As he spoke, his face turned pale.
I deeply apologize, Mr. Wilson David. We'll prepare your first-class seats right away. Good. Make sure you do. And about the personnel matter you mentioned earlier. Come on, Belle. Let's go. I'm truly sorry.
As my father walked back to me, the captain called out to him with a loud voice. When my father turned around, the captain was deeply apologizing.
I assure you this isn't our usual behavior. Usually different, huh? Seems like you've been hiding your true nature. Anyway, thanks for arranging the seats.
With that, my father patted my shoulder and headed to the boarding gate. While waiting for the plane, my father explained everything. Years ago, he had saved a child from drowning in a river. That child's father turned out to be the CEO of this airline. They had maintained a casual relationship since, exchanging Christmas cards and occasional gifts. One day, the CEO called my father. He had been diagnosed with a terminal illness. His son was already working, but he wanted someone trustworthy by his side. That's when he thought of my father. My father, who had once rushed to save a stranger's child, had some knowledge of the aviation industry, which made him a suitable choice. After some contemplation, my father accepted the offer. His recent phone calls and outings were to discuss the transition with the CEO and his son. In the end, the captain, who had deeply apologized, was reportedly let go after our flight. When I reported the captain's situation to the president's son and asked the current personnel department to interview the captain's surroundings, I found that he got angry with his colleagues and juniors and harassed customers he didn't like. It was discovered that he had been doing this. After hearing from colleagues and subordinates about his behavior, the CEO was furious and decided to fire him. Our family celebrated both my father's retirement and his new high-ranking position by enjoying the best trip ever. After returning, my father seemed even more involved in his work than before. Hearing about it from my mother, I realized that the role of HR might be very fulfilling for my father, who loves helping others. Witnessing the connections my father made by prioritizing others over himself, I decided to live my life in a similar manner.
I'm divorcing you. I want to live with mom and dad. Get out, you leeching homemaker.
A heated argument had crossed a line with the husband's words. I handed him the prepared divorce papers, making him sign the documents the lawyer had prepared. My husband and in-laws were thrilled about the divorce, but they didn't know yet. They didn't know that an unimaginable hell was awaiting them. My name is Emily, and I'm 30 years old. I'm a homemaker. I've been married to Mason for 5 years, and our only daughter, Lily, is almost 4. On the surface, we seem like a happy family, but there was one problem I couldn't share with anyone. We lived with my husband's parents, and it had become a massive burden for me. It all started right after we got married. Mason was supposed to move to my apartment after our wedding, but suddenly he proposed something unexpected.
Hey, Emily, about after we get married?
The registration is next month, and it's coming soon. What's going on?
Well, I've been thinking about this. How about we live with my parents after we get married?
What?
Live together?
I was speechless at the sudden proposition. Seeing my reaction, my husband hastily added,
Oh, I don't mean forever. We'll want our home someday and we'll need a car when we have children. So I want to save money for that time.
I understand wanting to save money, but do we have to live together?
My parents said we could live there for free. They're getting old and they said it would be comforting to have us around.
I appreciate their kindness, but
I'm serious about saving money for our future, Emily. So I want to save on rent until we have kids. Please, I beg you.
my husband repeatedly pleaded, leaving me in a difficult position. It was hard to refuse when we cited saving for our future as the reason for living together, and this arrangement was only to last until we had children. My husband's salary isn't all that high. That's why I can understand my husband's argument that we should live with my parents and save on living expenses by saving money. Eventually, I gave in, and reluctantly we decided to live with my in-laws. For the first few months, living together wasn't a problem. We both saved part of our income in a joint account and everything was going smoothly. Then, my pregnancy was confirmed. When I reported it to my husband, the news immediately reached my in-laws as well. That's probably when my nightmare began. After becoming pregnant with his child, my mother-in-law started to become more and more harsh. Upon getting pregnant, I switched to working from home, and my mother-in-law said to me in a stern tone,
Emily, what are you doing at home while my son is out working?
I'm working too?
Huh? What kind of work? You're just playing around on the computer.
No, this is my job. I switched to something I can do at home because of my morning sickness. But no matter how I explained, mother-in-law just shook her head and sighed.
My goodness, what an awful daughter-in-law. You're just trying to deceive us, aren't you? Morning sickness is nothing. Lying to get out of work is despicable.
Wait a minute. I really just switched to working from home.
Quiet. Don't talk back to me. You're just a daughter-in-law. If you're just going to play on the computer, at least take care of the house.
And so, my days of being forced to do housework without acknowledgement of my work from home continued. Morning sickness can vary day to day. Some days, life goes on as normal, but others, it's so agonizing I can't even get up. No matter how much I tried to explain, mother-in-law wouldn't budge. In fact, every time I opened my mouth, she would scream,
It's a lie. It's an excuse.
And wouldn't believe a word I said. And to think mother-in-law herself went through the pain of childbirth with her son Mason. As for my father-in-law, he's always been a man of few words. He's quiet, but he never intervenes between mother-in-law and me and is firmly on mother-in-law's side. All the while, I'm being lectured by mother-in-law. He has this creepy grin on his face. I've sometimes thought it would be better to go to the office instead. But the trauma of feeling sick while outside made it impossible for my body to endure commuting during pregnancy. However, if I kept being harassed by my in-laws every day, the stress would build up. I decided to talk to my husband about it. Mason, I hate to bring this up all of a sudden, but can we stop living with your parents?
What?
My husband looked at me bewildered and asked, What's wrong all of a sudden? I don't want to say this, but living with your parents, it's reached its limit for me.
What do you mean limit? Did something happen?
Well, every day when you're not around, I've been harassed.
Harassed?
I told my husband everything from mother-in-law's snide remarks to my father-in-law's cold attitude. Tears welled up as I spoke, and though I was choked up, I firmly conveyed how unbearable my life had become. Mason will surely respect my feelings above all. Our monthly savings might decrease a bit, but he will definitely understand. But what came out of my husband's mouth were words I could never have imagined.
Hey, isn't this Emily's fault?
What?
No, I mean, if mom and dad are behaving like that, it must be for a serious reason. You get scolded like that because you don't do what mom says, right?
I never thought I would be blamed, and I was bewildered. Just wait a minute. I told you, Mason, didn't I? I have switched to working from home. But that doesn't mean I'm not working at all. It's impossible to take on all the housework during work hours.
Do you want to say that mom and dad are wrong? We're living here for free, just listen a little.
Dad and mom.
Oh, anyway, this is Emily's fault. Don't trouble my precious parents any further.
My husband ended the conversation unilaterally and left the room. Dad and mom, how old are you? I explained everything. So why do you only defend your parents and not me? If I knew it would come to this, I would never have agreed to live together in the first place. But I don't have the courage to leave this house now. I'm about to give birth. If I become alone now, I can see that life will be hard. That thought held me back, and I couldn't bring myself to divorce. Time passed, and I safely gave birth to my daughter. I think I endured well, all things considered, against the harassment of my in-laws and my husband's incomprehension. I wanted to divorce as soon as possible, but I couldn't because my husband and in-laws loved our daughter so much, and I couldn't bear to take our family away from her. Spending the day with my in-laws was painful, so I wanted to return to work right after parental leave, but the company's policy changed, and I had to settle for working from home. Today, as I was preparing dinner while my mother-in-law complained, my husband came home with a big smile on his face.
I'm home. Man, I'm tired.
"Welcome back," I called out, and my husband ran to me flashing some documents. "What's this?"
You won't believe it. I bought a high-rise condo today.
"What? A high-rise condo? You bought it? You're joking, right?"
It's not a joke. My parents and I have been talking about living in a high-rise condo for a while now. Man, my dream has finally come true.
"What? What are you talking about?" Ignoring my confusion, my in-laws were cheering and saying well done to my husband. I was so taken aback that I hurriedly questioned my husband. "Wait a minute, you're lying about the high-rise condo, right?"
Why would I lie? It's great. From now on, we'll be living in a high-rise condo. We're joining the upper class.
"Don't be ridiculous. I didn't hear anything about it, and we can't possibly live in a high-rise condo."
But we can't live in one, you know. I had an acquaintance push through the review for us under the condition of paying double the deposit.
What? What is this man suddenly talking about? I hadn't heard anything about living in a high-rise condo and doubling the deposit. Where would we get that kind of money? In my shock, I was at a loss for words, and my husband began to look down on me and snap at me.
Do you have a problem with me or something? After all, I humbled myself to get our application approved.
It's not that I'm complaining, but I'm shocked that you didn't consult me. Why aren't you saying anything to me? What about our plans to save for a home and car?
If I had told you, you would have just objected, right?
What?
I had planned to live with my parents after we got married from the start, and I never, ever intended to move out.
What? What do you mean? Then what about saving money?
I just made something that sounded good. All I ever wanted was to live with mom and dad. That's all.
My husband deceived me? I never knew he could have such a scheme. Anger began to bubble up inside me, and my voice grew harsher. What's that about? Don't be ridiculous. You prioritize living with your parents over our married life?
What's wrong with that? I only married you for appearances. You just mess around at home saying you're working remotely. A failure of a wife like you should just keep quiet and do as you're told.
Stop it. Enough. I can't bear it anymore. I didn't think you were like this.
That's my line. I want a divorce, you homemaker parasite.
Calling me a parasite? That's harsh.
But it's the truth, isn't it? I don't need a failure like you. I'll live in a high-rise apartment with mom and dad, and you're just in the way. I'll give you custody, but leave right away.
Don't you find your own daughter cute?
I'll tell you now, she's not cute because she looks like you. I was just pretending to dote on her. What mom and dad really wanted was a boy, not a girl.
Being insulted about my daughter too? The fuse inside me finally blew. I understand. If you say so, I will leave. But I need a week because of Lily.
All right. You will leave without fail after a week, right?
Thus, my preparations for revenge began. The next day, I headed to a law firm to have a pledge prepared that stated no contact after divorce. The deadline of a week was short, but I did everything possible towards the divorce. A week later, I handed over the prepared divorce papers and had him sign the documents the lawyer created. As I left with my daughter clutching our belongings, my husband and in-laws sneered and said,
"You're finally leaving? We're moving to a high-rise apartment soon, and it's going to be amazing. We can sell this house and use it for the new home's mortgage. 2 birds with 1 stone, right, Mom?"
Absolutely. Living with just Mason and Dad, I'm so happy.
As my daughter and I left my in-laws' home, I silently smiled to myself in my heart. They should enjoy themselves while they can. They'll have to face reality soon enough, right? A few months later, as expected, a call came from my husband.
Emily, please help me.
What happened?
Stop the weird jokes. Please come back right now. If things continue like this, we'll be kicked out of the high-rise apartment.
I thought it might be something like that.
What?
Yes, I knew it. I knew that my husband and his family would end up like this. You couldn't pay the loan, could you?
How did you know that?
Come on, it was obvious. Your salary isn't that high. At first, you managed to pay it off with the money from selling your family home, but now you can't. And you panicked and called me. That's it, right?
If you know, then help us. Our joint account has less money than I thought. There should have been several $100,000 in there.
Of course, when we divorced, I withdrew exactly half the money.
What?
My husband seemed unaware, but during that 1 week when I was preparing for the divorce, I had withdrawn half the money from our joint account and transferred it to my own account. It seems he was relying on that money. Without confirming, he now faced the reality.
Oh, wait. Taking it out on your own is unfair, isn't it?
Unfair? How so? That money was something we both saved a fixed amount into after we got married. What's wrong with me taking half as property division? It's a valid reason. Besides, you've always treated me like a parasite since I worked from home, right?
Don't joke around. My parents' savings are almost nothing, and we didn't get much for selling the family home. I was planning to use the money from our joint account for the loan payment. Give it back. That money is mine.
Don't joke around. Those are my words. I yelled back at my husband over the phone in a low voice. This is what happens when you sign contracts for things you can't afford. You got what you deserved.
What?
Just so you know, since you signed that affidavit, you owe me compensation if you involve me in anything. Should I claim it right now? Then my husband pleaded, tears in his eyes.
Give me a break.
Annoying, isn't it? Then live peacefully with your beloved dad and mom, the family you love so much. I finally found happiness by getting away from thrash like you. Stay away from me and my daughter forever. In a huff, I hung up the phone and deleted my husband's contact information. I hadn't given my new address, so we likely wouldn't meet again. From what I had heard, my husband and in-laws quickly fell behind on their loan payments and were soon evicted from their high-rise apartment. When they sold the new house to pay off the debts, only the debt remained. Since their family home was already sold, the three of them were now living in a cramped apartment. With only Mason's salary, they couldn't afford decent meals and seemed to be wasting away day by day. Rather, it seemed like a fitting punishment. On the other hand, I had rented a new house near my workplace and was enjoying peaceful days with my daughter. Work was going well and I had even been promoted recently. I was able to save a decent amount of money for my daughter. Lily, I'm sorry. Are you lonely, just you and mom? I asked my daughter on the way to the childcare center.
Lily, I hated Daddy when he was mean to Mommy. I hated Grandma and Grandpa too. What? Lily loves Mommy. As long as Mommy is here, it's okay. Oh, Lily. Mommy, stay with me forever.
With those words, my daughter tightly grasped my hand. The bitterness and resentment that had been lingering in my heart slowly started to unravel. I will make this child happy, no matter what. I vowed to myself, squeezing my daughter's little hand in return.
I'm going on a business trip for the next 3 days, he announced. I wonder how many times I've been left alone on the weekends due to such trips. I'll be late due to overtime, he often said, resulting in countless nights without a family dinner. At first, I thought it was better not to know, but eventually my husband's repetitive actions received what he deserved. My name is Nancy, a part-time housewife at 44. My husband, Paul, is 46, a corporate employee at a certain company. While his work is not bad, he is a man who values his style and appearance above all else. We've been married for 19 years. The year after our wedding, our son William was born, and without any significant issues, our marital life has reached this point. Or so I wish I could say. The reality is that I've spent more than half of our married life being manipulated by my husband's lies. He was always worried about his smartphone. Initially, I thought it was work-related, but I'd occasionally see him typing away, and upon sneaking a peek, it was usually a conversation with someone on an instant messaging app. I didn't pay much attention at the time, but looking back, there were indeed many suspicious points. As his sudden overtime and weekend business trips increased, I began to feel something was off. Several summers ago, my husband, who was supposed to be on a 3-day business trip, returned home with a heavy tan. Why are you so tanned when you were supposed to be in a suit for a business trip? I went swimming with a client. It was part of the entertainment. A bit back at his absurd answer, but at the time, I only thought it was unfair that he had a fun time alone, reflecting how stupid I was. My often absent husband used work as an excuse to leave the care of his parents to me. A few years ago, my mother-in-law became disabled due to an injury, and my husband never once offered to accompany her to her hospital visit. He should have some paid leave, but he would blatantly ignore any calls from her. Thus, I'd have to take time off from my part-time job to accompany her. My mother-in-law was a strict person, possibly because she used to be a teacher of traditional calligraphy. I'm rather scatterbrained and prone to mistakes, so I often found myself on the receiving end of her harsh words. To be honest, I didn't like her that much, and I've discussed this with my husband many times. Could you please accompany her to the hospital next week? Your mother would surely want to see you. I would if I can, but there might be a company trip around that time. What? I've never heard about such a trip. Well, it was decided last weekend. I pressed him about this sudden company trip, but he refused to listen. In the end, I had to accompany my mother-in-law to the hospital, yet again. There was a weekend when my husband was surprisingly home. Our son, who was now in 5th grade, had been performing well in his soccer team, so I suggested that we go watch his game together. Every parent watching the children's game lost themselves in the cheer. Our son coordinated well with his teammates, leading the game solidly, and they achieved a splendid victory. Both parents and children were wildly excited about the team's results, and we, as a married couple, joined hands in joy after a long time. The one who approached us at this moment was a mother of a teammate, Patricia. Patricia was a very straightforward woman, and I quickly became friends with her. We would regularly share updates on our children's troubles, home affairs, etc., and began visiting each other's homes more frequently. My husband also got along well with her. Even if Patricia was still at our house when my husband came home from work, we actually felt glad. Our relationship deepened as friends of our marriage. In this way, we continued to have a family-wide relationship, involving not only our sons, but also Patricia's husband. One day, after several years of such interaction, Patricia suddenly started saying something surprising. I know this may sound odd, but doesn't your husband Paul seem to be pretty popular with women? An old man like him? No way. Well, the other day, I saw a man who looked just like Paul at a restaurant with a seductive woman. They looked really close. Patricia then gave a detailed account of what she saw my husband and the mysterious woman doing at the restaurant. Even I was stunned by what she described. Although shocked by Patricia's sighting, I was at a loss as to what to do about the sudden suspicion of my husband's infidelity. While I was still speechless, Patricia advised me to gather evidence first. You can't just vaguely accuse him of cheating, you need to confront him with evidence. She then proceeded to teach me several methods to gather evidence of infidelity. From then on, I could only view my husband with a suspicious eye, and our marriage became even more strained than before. Between our son's SATs, accompanying my mother-in-law to the hospital, my part-time job, and housework, I had plenty on my plate. It was a lot to add the task of looking for evidence of my husband's infidelity. But I did things like search his suit pockets when he was out. Then came that day. Although we had separate bedrooms for a long time, when my husband was away, I felt blissful spreading out on the large bed. I decided to do the same that night and went to the bedroom. When I changed the sheets and duvet and moved my husband's pillow to put mine in place, I found a bank book underneath. Upon inspection, I saw that a fixed amount was being transferred every month to the same person from the account under my husband's name. Checking the name, it read, Patricia Brown. Yes, that's right. To Patricia, our friend, he had been transferring about $300 every month. I silently took a picture of it with my smartphone. The next day was the day I had to accompany my mother-in-law to the hospital. Hey, Nancy, are you listening? It seemed I had been spacing out, thinking about the bank book from the day before. I'm sorry, I wasn't listening very well. Well, I saw Paul walking early in the morning. This was my mother-in-law's story. When she was riding in a friend's car through the residential area early in the morning for some errands, she saw my husband walking and entering an unfamiliar house. Who would he be visiting at such an hour? The only houses you could enter early in the morning would be families, right? As I listened to my mother-in-law's story, I recalled what Patricia had told me earlier. Proof of infidelity. I asked my mother-in-law to give me a general idea of the address in that town. Soon, it was crunch time for our son's college entrance exams, and he was attending cram school every day. The cram school fee was set to be automatically deducted from my husband's account, but I received a notice stating the fee could not be deducted 2 times in a row. I decided to ask my husband about it. The money for William's cram school, they said they couldn't deduct it from the account. Well, can you cover it for now? I'll pay you back later. My husband's behavior seemed odd. Still, I didn't want any conflicts before our son's exams, so I agreed to pay the fee for the time being. But then the same issue occurred the next month, and I had to confront my husband. I'm sorry, I have some debts that need to be settled. I promise to sort it out next month, he said. But by the next month, our son's college entrance exams would have started, and the cram school would be over. I was disappointed that my husband didn't even realize that. Then, our son's exams were successfully finished. He was accepted into the high-profile soccer school he had hoped for. It seems like he didn't make it, I heard. Patricia's son, Robert, had also aimed for the same high school as William, but unfortunately, he didn't pass. He was likely going to attend his backup private school. But according to my son, Robert had stopped appearing at school after the exams. He didn't even show up for the graduation ceremony, and I felt awkward contacting Patricia, so our communication ended there. As my son's high school life settled down, I found myself thinking about what Patricia had told me more frequently. There were several instances of my husband's suspicious behavior, and it was still continuing. At this point, I wanted to clear my mind of all the uncertainty, so I decided to seriously confront my husband. First of all, it was Patricia, whom I had stopped contacting for some time. I contacted her. Then she told me something shocking. Do you have plans for this weekend? Why the sudden question? This weekend, I'll probably be on a business trip from Friday. After confirming that, I called my husband's company on Friday. Hi, I was hoping to know the accommodation my husband is staying at on his business trip. I can't seem to reach him on his cell phone. That's strange. We don't have anyone out on business trips starting today. Feeling as if I knew what was going on, I misled the person from his company and ended the call. That night, I got into a car at a prearranged meeting place and headed towards a residential area. I was determined to obtain solid proof. After midnight, a man who looked like my husband and a slender woman got out of a taxi and went into the house. I quickly took a picture. Zooming in, it was clear that the man was my husband, and the woman's face was easily identifiable as well. Gathering one piece of evidence after another, I set the date for the confrontation. It was a few days after my husband returned from his business trip, looking exhausted. I'll be late tonight again because of overtime. Upon hearing my husband's words, I responded with a grin. Our last supper then. Enjoy yourself. There was probably a profound sense of unease in my husband's face from my unexpected smile. He left, scratching his head. Little did he know, stepping into the worst occasion. That night, I hopped in the car again and headed to our designated meeting place. Arriving at the house where I had seen my husband enter with another woman, I rang the doorbell and turned the doorknob. Good evening. Mind if I come in? Startled by the unfamiliar voice, the woman who came out asked, Who are you? I thought my husband was here, I responded, pointing to a pair of men's shoes by the door. Those belong to my husband. I was shocked to learn she was also married. Indeed, there were other men's shoes. Ignoring her, I barged in, saying, Excuse me. A meal was set up on the table, as if they had just begun to eat. However, my husband was nowhere to be seen. Looking around, I noticed a window leading to the backyard was open. Got him. Those were the words from Patricia outside the window. Yes, my husband had tried to escape through the backyard when he realized I was there. I confronted my husband and the married woman. When did this start? It's been 1 to 2 years. Really, it's not that long. Listening to my husband justify that a 1 to 2 year affair wasn't long, I responded, 10 years, right? I know it. It's been going on for a long time. With that girl from your office, right? What are you talking about? Upon hearing my words, both Sarah and Patricia twisted their faces in confusion. I visited your office and spoke to a few people. You know how there are always some friendly, chatty folks who are happy to spill the beans? Well, they were quite kind to tell me everything. The rumors about you and a girl named Sarah. It seems you two were quite famous. You went to my office? And they told you that? Indeed. When I mentioned that it seems like you have been betraying me for the past 10 years, people were all too eager to share what they knew. My husband, trembling slightly, looked lost, as if he was trying to figure out what he should do next. Seeing him like that, I decided to throw him another curveball. You're shaking, aren't you? How will you manage with what's coming next? As I finished speaking, the front doorbell rang. Sarah, who jumped up in surprise, rushed to the door, and I followed her. The visitor was Robert, my son's soccer buddy, and Patricia's son. When I invited Robert into the house, Patricia, who was already there, looked surprised and wide-eyed. You live nearby with your father now, right, Robert? As I understand it, your parents suddenly fell out for reasons you still don't really comprehend. And you've reconnected with our son. You've been talking to me about it too. Let's clear things up here and now. I said this and looked at Patricia. The woman my husband also cheated with was you, Patricia. Patricia looked at me in surprise and glanced down, unable to meet her son's gaze. Sarah seemed astonished too. So it began when you met us, right? Pretending to get along with me while both of you were betraying me behind my back. I quickly wiped away my tears and turned to my husband. Why were you transferring $300 every month to Patricia? Was it because you were paying her that we couldn't afford William's tutoring fees? How could you take money meant for our son's education and give it to your mistress? My husband looked shocked that I knew so much, but he couldn't say anything in his defense. In response, Patricia's son Robert said, Both my mother and you are despicable, dragging their families into this. Robert said that with a disdainful glare at the two before leaving. It's your fault. You knew you were seeing this woman, and it wasn't about wanting money. You tried to appease me with money, didn't you? Patricia suddenly broke down, hitting my husband's chest as she cried and accused him. My husband had begun an affair with Patricia while he was still seeing Sarah. Exasperated with this, Patricia had started to hint at the infidelity to me, thinking me as suspicious. My husband was trying to placate Patricia, all the while conscious of the gazes of Sarah and me. Sarah seemed angry, her face red, but I felt myself cooling off. It all started to feel ridiculous. Are you all crazy? Am I the only one who has to take responsibility in the end? But fine, I don't need a man like this. You two do as you please. I said that, handed the prepared divorce papers to my husband, and continued. I'll send all your stuff to your parents' house. They'll be charged on delivery, so you'll be hearing from your mother soon. But I was wrong. I truly cared only for you. Help me. As I tried to leave, my husband, looking desperate, tried to peel off the two women closing in on him and begged me. Why not ask your mother for help? I replied calmly and headed for the entrance. At the door, I bumped into an unfamiliar man. It looked like the Sarah's husband. I left the house with a smile, knowing that the unexpected return of the husband would stir up another row. Afterwards, we divorced. My husband's long-term misconduct became known not only to his parents, but also to his colleagues, and he was severely reprimanded by his stern mother. His credibility at work fell drastically, forcing him to resign. Patricia, who was his mistress, was handed divorce papers by her estranged husband and seemed to have ended up completely alone. Sarah seemed to have moved somewhere, judging from the sale of her house. The scale of the consequences of my husband's long-term infidelity would probably shock him for the rest of his life. For me, since my husband's family had assets, I was able to receive a substantial alimony. It took courage to tell my son the truth, but he quietly listened to my struggles and told me that he too would do his best to live without any worries in the future. Now I live peacefully with my son.
You're running a lunchbox shop that's beneath our family status. You're an embarrassment, so you won't be attending the wedding. At a family meeting with my son, who's engaged to the CEO's daughter, I was hit with these unexpected words. My late husband Joseph's cherished shop was belittled, and I was told I couldn't attend my beloved son's wedding. I couldn't accept it. But if it's for my son's sake, I had no choice. I can't ruin my son's marriage because of me. I want him to be happy. Reluctantly, I agreed to their terms. But then, an unexpected person showed up, leaving the other parents pale-faced. "Richard, take care of Mom for me," Joseph had said with a smile as he took his last breath. I thought we had so much more time. We had promised to make people smile through our cooking. Growing up, my parents were always busy, so I naturally started making dinner. I'd cook, wrap up the leftovers, and go to bed. In the morning, the dishes were always clean, and a thank you note was left. I wanted to make my parents happy, so I got into cooking. Joseph was passionate and dreamed of owning his own restaurant. I was drawn to his enthusiasm and effort toward his dream, so we started dating. Cooking for Joseph, who aspired to be a chef, was nerve-wracking. One day he said, "Nancy, let's open a shop together. Your cooking has the magic to make people smile, and I'm one of them. Let's make people smile together." Hearing that, I remembered my past efforts to please my parents and decided to run a homey lunchbox shop with Joseph. I handled mornings. Joseph took care of nights. Joseph would always say thank you after meals. "Gratitude needs to be expressed," he'd say, a phrase that still rings in my ears. After giving birth to Richard, life was tough, but fulfilling. Joseph passed away before fulfilling his dream. Richard grew up fast, and I did my best not to let him see my sorrow. He's a thoughtful, kind child who even helps with chores. He loves my cooking and even started cooking himself. When he got a job, he cooked a special meal to thank me. Even after moving out, he occasionally visits to check on me. Recently, Richard said he'd cook another special meal. What's the occasion? He'd often cook, but special meals were rare since he got his job. As we sat down to eat his delicious cooking, Richard said, "Mom, I'm marrying Patricia." I knew Patricia, his warm-hearted coworker, and felt they were a good match. "That's wonderful. Make her happy, okay?" "Of course. And Mom, I might become the next CEO. Turns out Patricia is the daughter of the CEO of the company where Richard works. They're impressed with Richard's work and see him as a future CEO. When I heard this, I was surprised, but also deeply proud that my son was being recognized. As I prepared to visit Patricia's family before the wedding, I felt sentimental looking back on my life. William Smith and Elizabeth, who greeted us, had nothing but praise for Richard. The table was filled with various dishes, and I could see a private chef busy in the kitchen. Richard is truly exceptional, both in his work and as a person. We can trust him with the future of the company. We always thought Richard and Patricia were a perfect match. We cried tears of joy when we heard they were getting married. We look forward to the future. Richard, a bit shy, firmly declared, I will build a happy home with Patricia. I have something to prepare, so Patricia and I will step out for a moment. They left the room with playful smiles, and I felt a mix of pride and warmth. So, Nancy, when are you planning to quit that lunchbox shop of yours? After they left, I sensed a change in Elizabeth's tone. Quit? I never said I was quitting. Well, it's not like it's making much money. Why keep running such a lunchbox shop? I couldn't believe my ears. Is that lunchbox shop? Why are you saying this? That shop is precious to me and my late husband, Joseph. Well, it's not like you're offering anything special. The Smith family owns a major corporation with hundreds of employees. It's not a good match. We were fine with Richard, but we can't accept that his family runs a small-town lunchbox shop. We thought you were quitting, which is why we moved forward with the wedding plans. I was stunned. I couldn't comprehend what was being said. Or maybe I didn't want to. Was my shop the reason Richard couldn't get married? Why does the scale of our business affect my son's marriage? It's a significant difference, objectively speaking. Elizabeth is right. How can we tell people that the family of our future CEO runs an outdated lunchbox shop? Don't belittle it just because it's a lunchbox shop. Elizabeth snorted at my words and delivered the final blow. Enough! You're an embarrassment to our family with that lunchbox shop. You won't be attending the wedding. Not just the wedding. If you continue the shop, we'll cut ties with Richard as well. Do you intend to hold Richard back? Their words cut deep into my heart. I was overwhelmed with a mix of emptiness and anger. I was just happy that Richard was finding his happiness. He's my pride and joy. Please, let me see him get married, even if it's from the shadows. Why do I have to watch Richard's fine form from the shadows? It was my own words, but to be honest, my brain couldn't keep up with them. I'm sorry, but even if you were in the shadows, Richard and Patricia might find it suspicious. We'll say you had an emergency and couldn't attend. Just then, I started to hear Richard and Patricia's voices as they returned to the room. They'll be back soon. If I just give in to William Smith and Elizabeth's demands, these two can live happily. If I just endure it, everything will work out. If I just... Nancy, what do you think? All right. Sorry for the wait. Here's a gift from us to the three of you. Oh, what a relief! You two prepared such a wonderful gift. I'm so happy. Thank you. I didn't expect you to do something so wonderful. Elizabeth got a music box. President William got a whiskey. And for me, an apron. Patricia suggested the apron, saying you're always cooking delicious meals at the shop. We were worried if you'd like it. Ah, thank you. I'll cherish it. Mom, are you crying that much? Tears wouldn't stop flowing. Richard looked at me, surprised but smiling warmly. This apron will be my last memory. The smiles of Richard and Patricia were deeply etched in my heart. Be happy. On the day of the wedding, I sat on the living room floor, still in my pajamas, without even the energy to turn on the lights. My phone was filled with missed calls from Richard and Patricia. Since that day, I didn't know how to interact with Richard, who was excitedly talking about the wedding. I could only offer him cliched words. I held the apron they gave me tightly. celebrating their union alone, tears flowing endlessly. The next day, I was awakened by the incessant ringing of the doorbell. I instantly knew it was Richard. And indeed, it was him, and Patricia was with him. On the first day of their new life, they had come all the way to my house. As soon as I opened the door, Richard, unable to hide his anxiety, said, "Mom, what happened? We were worried because we knew you wouldn't forget the wedding. Why didn't you come?" "Nancy, was it something I did?" Their faces were pale, a stark contrast to the happiness they should be feeling. I didn't expect him to make me look like this the day after the wedding. "Mom, please, I need to know." From their expressions, I knew that no amount of sugarcoating would work. "Let's talk. Come in." I told them everything that President William and Elizabeth had said to me when they stepped out. I wondered if it was okay to reveal everything, but I couldn't stop myself. Richard's face gradually tensed up, but Patricia seemed the most shocked. "What is this? How could they say such terrible things to you, Nancy? This is unbelievable." Tears flowed from Patricia's eyes, widened in a mix of anger, sadness, and surprise. "Nancy, I don't know how to apologize for my parents. I'm so sorry." "Stop it, Patricia. You've done nothing wrong. I'm sorry for causing you pain the day after your wedding." "Mom, thank you for telling us." Richard spoke calmly, and with a dazed Patricia left my home. The next day, the doorbell rang again. Could it be Richard? I opened the door to find President William and Elizabeth standing there. "What have you done? Enough of your games!" I was emotionless as I absorbed their angry shouts. "What's the matter? You come here shouting, disturbing the neighbors?" "Disturbing? We're not worried about the neighbors. You've ruined everything." "Seems like you're the ones who've ruined things." "What are you talking about? You must have filled Patricia and Richard's heads with nonsense. Richard even handed in his resignation." "That's right. Patricia is even talking about cutting ties with us. You orchestrated this, didn't you?" I hadn't asked for any of this, nor had I orchestrated anything. Was this what Richard's determined look meant? I was relieved, but also puzzled about how to handle the situation. I simply told them the truth. Don't accuse me of manipulating them. I think they made their own decisions. Stop playing games. I'd like to say the same to you. "What is this? Are you trying to ruin our company?" Just as President William shouted, a car pulled up in front of the house. A sleek, spotless, black luxury car. The door opened and we all gasped. Out stepped Richard, followed by Patricia, and then an elderly gentleman. "Nancy, long time no see. I apologize for the recent rudeness." "Dad, why are you here? Do you know this person?" "Don't ask so many questions. Nancy's father is a successful businessman who runs multiple companies. We owe him a lot. Nancy is also involved in the business as an executive. Didn't you know that?" The elderly gentleman was David Smith, President William's father and Patricia's grandfather, currently serving as the chairman. I had met him at board meetings at my father's company, but it had been a while. President William paled at David's words. "You can't be serious. You don't even know the management of your business partners? Shame on you. And you dare to say cut ties and don't attend the wedding to the parents of the man Patricia is going to spend her life with? Utterly disrespectful." David's words enveloped me, Richard, and Patricia. President William and Elizabeth looked as if they'd been plunged into despair. A week later, I ran into President William at a board meeting at my father's company. He gave me a slight nod and moved away, avoiding me. I watched his retreating back and made up my mind. For Richard and Patricia's sake, this relationship couldn't continue as is. After the meeting, I stopped President William, who was hurrying home. President William, we're renting out my shop this weekend to celebrate my son's wedding. Would you like to join us? Well, I don't think it's appropriate for me to. Don't say that. It's a good opportunity to mend fences. We had issues at the wedding, but why not start fresh? Why would you? After all that happened. I was hurt, but Patricia apologized first. I want those two to be happy. We share that wish, don't we? Will you join us? After some thought, President William nodded. I'm truly sorry. I'll join the celebration. On the day when President William and Elizabeth walked into my lunch shop, Richard and Patricia stood up to say something. But before they could, I stepped forward to greet them. Thank you for coming today. It's a bit cramped because we've set up the dining area where we usually display lunch boxes, but let's enjoy ourselves. What's the meaning of this? Patricia glared at her parents. Patricia, I invited them. We can't continue like this. We can't forget what happened at the wedding, but we can make better memories from now on. But also, you can't just sever ties with family. I have a request too, okay? Elizabeth, thank you for raising Patricia to be such a wonderful person. I said such terrible things. It's because Patricia, who met Richard, is wonderful. I learned from Joseph that you have to express gratitude. It took time, but the tension between the newlyweds and their parents eventually eased. Now, we all enjoy a meal together once a month. Elizabeth even started buying lunch boxes from my shop. Today, as always, I greet her wearing the apron Richard and Patricia gave me. Welcome! All to bring smiles through cooking. Marriage isn't the only path to happiness. I heard someone say that on TV, and it's not entirely wrong. I'm 45 and single, but I'm living a fulfilled life. At my brother's wedding, I've thought, they look so happy. I'm a bit envious, but marriage really hinges on who you're with. This is a record of my battle with a crazy woman I encountered. My name is Elle, and I'm 45 years old. I'm a single woman living alone. I've given up on marriage, but I haven't given up on my life. Work is going well, and I'm enjoying happy days. If you ask me if I have my retirement planned out, I couldn't exactly nod in agreement. However, I've already paid off my home loan and I'm preparing for retirement by revisiting things like insurance. I have a father and mother and a younger brother, Stephen, who's 10 years younger. My parents are living even after 70 and my brother is happily married. He and his wife had their first child 3 years ago and their second last fall. My parents, who used to nag me about marriage and children, stopped since they now see their grandchildren thanks to my brother's family. My parents and brother seem happy, and I can enjoy my remaining years alone in peace. That life doesn't sound too bad, I thought casually. The only problem was my brother's wife, Liliana. Liliana is the same age as my brother, 10 years younger than me. Nonetheless, she always comes at me with unbelievable attitudes. When they had their first child, I gave them a baby gift. Instead of thanking me, Liliana disdainfully said, Elle, just so you know, don't think that giving a gift now means you're set for the future. That's just ridiculous. What do you mean? I responded, puzzled by Liliana's words. She snorts and continues. Don't play dumb, Elle. You're single, so you plan to rely on our child in the future, right? I'll say it now. I didn't give birth for your sake. So I definitely don't want to be responsible for your old age care. Wait, what? I just gave a birth celebration gift, right? Even though I never mentioned anything about wanting to be taken care of in old age, why do I have to hear something like this? I couldn't understand why she was so angry or how this conversation turned to my old age. When I reported this to my brother, he called his wife and arranged a proper discussion. Liliana, Elle just gave a birth celebration gift, right? So why did you say something like that? My brother questioned her and she made a terrifying face and responded, What? Stephen, what are you talking about? Elle wants to depend on our child in old age. That's why she gave us so much money, right? No, I just gave a little more because my cute brother had a child. Listening silently to their conversation, my brother scolded her. Stop it! Elle didn't say anything like that. She just gave us a birth celebration gift as an aunt because we had a child. That's all. What are you talking about, Stephen? Are you on Elle's side? She glared at me angrily and shouted, "Hey, it's Elle's fault. I got yelled at by Stephen." Huh? Me? I was surprised to be suddenly blamed. Liliana, like Stephen said, I just gave the birth celebration gift with genuine congratulations. Don't lie. I know what you're thinking. Anyway, I'm not thinking what you think, Liliana. I plan to live on my own and it's okay. You say that. When our child grows up, you'll trick them into taking care of you, right? So, I'm not thinking of relying on my nephew. Liliana continued to scream and shout until she was satisfied. There was no point in talking anymore. I decided to leave her response to my brother and went home. A few days later, Liliana called to apologize. She seemed more subdued, possibly scolded by my brother. Elle, I'm sorry about the other day. I was a little oversensitive. Just after giving birth, I said something rude and I'm sorry. I don't have experience with childbirth, but it seems that women just after giving birth might see everyone as an enemy and overreact. I told her it's okay. You must have been tired, Liliana, and decided to forgive her for now. I only see my brother's family during the New Year's holiday or at family events. But as an aunt, I want to do something, so I sent presents or gift cards for birthdays and Christmas. However, when their second child was born last fall and I gave another birth celebration gift, Liliana became wild again. Hey, Elle, you understand that both of them are my children, right? What do you mean? Don't think of adopting one of them. Don't even think of something so unreasonable. Adopt? I never intended. Don't think you can have your way by giving a birth celebration gift. I will never give these children to you. Just like when the first child was born, not even a thank you. In fact, she talked as if I was bribing her children. Of course, my brother stepped in again. Hey, Liliana, are you still saying that stuff? She yelled, "Shut up," at my brother, who was defending me. Stephen is too trusting. I'm the one who gave birth to them, and they're getting lured by money. What if she says, "Give me one of them someday"? It'll be a problem, won't it? Come on, Elle would never do that. Just be quiet already. I hurried home, seeing my brother and his wife starting to argue. It had become silly to make any more excuses. Although Liliana called me again to apologize a few days later, I was in no mood to forgive her. I'm really sorry, I lost control of myself again. I had no sympathy left. Thinking about the future, I was sure it was best to have less to do with her. I think it's best we don't see each other anymore. You don't have to pay me back. Good luck with raising your kids. I told her that over the phone and hung up without waiting for her reply. I'm 45 and single, surely not a good look in society, and I do worry about my old age. But that doesn't mean I intend to rely on others, or even worse, expect my nephews to look after me. No matter how much I explain this to Liliana, she won't believe me, nor does she take my opinion into account. Feeling it would only worsen my mood, I decided to keep away from her as much as possible. I didn't send anything for the first Christmas after my brother's second child was born. I contacted my parents and decided to visit them separately from my brother and his wife. After the new year, a few days into my regular work schedule, I got a sudden call from Liliana. Hello? I answered, showing no credulity. Liliana, with a complacent tone, said, Oh, Elle, long time no see. You didn't come home for the New Year's holiday, so I thought you might have died alone or something. Happy New Year, Liliana. Thanks for your concern. I'm perfectly fine, don't worry. Since Liliana started the new year with a snide comment, I responded accordingly, but she didn't back down. Elle, I'm married to your brother, so I'm family to you too. Do you understand? What? What's this all of a sudden? Ignoring my feelings, Liliana started saying incomprehensible things. We're technically relatives, you know. Do you know about family relationships? You might not get it since you're single, but it's important, you know. Her words, spoken with an air of authority, evoked no emotions from me. Liliana said, Basically, this is what I mean, and went into an explanatory tone. Elle, you are the only aunt for our kids, so please do your job as an aunt. What do you mean, the job of an aunt? Huh? You still don't get it? Birthdays, Christmas, and graduation gifts. Celebrating children is common sense for adults, right? So you just want material things and money. Sorry, but as you know, I'm single. I have to think about my future and can't afford to waste money.
What are you talking about? Spending money on family isn't a waste, is it? Huh? Ignoring the tension in the room, she continued. Oh, by the way, your nephew's birthday is coming up. You've thought of a present for him, haven't you? Didn't you listen to me? I said I can't afford to waste money. But spending money on your adorable nephew isn't a waste. Oh, you're his only aunt. Please don't be so childish. You're single, so saving for retirement doesn't really matter now, does it? In that moment, something inside me snapped. I can't take any more. When I gave a gift for the birth, she bit my head off, and if I don't give one, she complains. All this time, she's trampled on my kindness, and now she expects me to be an aunt? I won't be taken for a fool. She's self-centered to the extreme. Fury reaching its peak, I calmly told her, all right, I understand. I'll get the present. At my words, she cheerfully exclaimed, that's the L I know! My kids are growing up, so I'll need various things from you. Sure, every time I give a gift, I'll remind you to take care of my retirement. Huh? Her voice tightened in an instant. Without any concern, I continued. Oh, or would you prefer, I'll give you whatever you want if you become my child? No. Or maybe I should drill into their heads, if you want presents, you must take care of me. Even she raised her voice saying, don't be ridiculous. What are you talking about? You told me you wouldn't rely on my children, didn't you? Did I know? But since I have to provide for them, I should ask for something in return, right? Enough. You should naturally give things to them as an aunt. Don't think of relying on my children. Panting, she snapped at me, and I snapped back twice as hard. If you don't want to be relied upon, then don't rely on me. Do you even realize how contradictory you're being? What? If I give a gift, you say don't rely on my children for your old age. But if I don't, you say you have no common sense. Your common sense is absurd to everyone else. How dare you say that at your age and still single? So what? I raised my voice over the phone. Marriage isn't just about doing it. It's about who you do it with. Marrying a woman like you, poor Stephen. What did you say? Stephen truly loves me. He just lost his mind for a moment. I should have advised Stephen properly before he married. You, how rude. To be frank, a child raised by an unreasonable woman like you would be far less well-adjusted than one raised by a sensible person like me. What do you, who has never had children, know about this? If you want to preach so arrogantly, brag about it after raising your child to be a responsible taxpayer. I will never associate with you again. If you want to leech off someone, do it to someone else. In a moment of fury, I hang up the phone and immediately block Liliana's number. I then call my brother and tell him what happened. I had no idea this happened. Elle, I'm really sorry that Liliana has been so rude and offensive. It's okay. I don't think Liliana and I will ever get along. We had a big fight after all. No, but it's fine. I don't intend to deal with her anymore. I feel bad for you, but I don't want to be manipulated by her anymore. I don't want an apology. My only wish is to completely sever my relationship with Liliana. Afterward, I asked my brother to delete my contact information from Liliana's mobile phone. I also contacted my parents asking, please don't tell her anything about me if she asks. When I go home, I make sure my visits don't coincide with my brother and his wife, and I ask him to call only when Liliana is not around. Since then, I haven't seen Liliana. My nieces and nephews were really cute, and I would like to watch them grow up if I could, but the stress from Liliana was even greater. Whether I was doing something out of kindness or not, Liliana always complained and threw sarcastic comments. How convenient are the family relationships she talks about? She can't comprehend it at all. Liliana is apparently still complaining to my brother about me. Elle blocked my calls. Unbelievable. What about the entrance gift? It can't be nothing, right? Your nephew's birthday is coming up soon, right? Surely you're not really going to ignore it. And so on. Ranting and causing trouble for my brother. I feel truly relieved to have cut ties with her early. Given how things were, it was only a matter of time before her relationship with my brother soured. I've withdrawn from Liliana's troublesome family relationships, and I don't feel inconvenienced. Rather, I'm more stress-free than before. My parents, too, are fed up with Liliana and show understanding towards me, which is truly a relief. They said, I'll let you secretly meet with your nieces and nephews. Now that I don't have to waste money on family relationships, I want to use it for my own happiness and ultimately for my old age.
This house was built with my money. You should get out.
What? But that house is...
Look, you're just part-time. You couldn't survive without me if we divorced.
Proudly, my husband handed me the divorce papers. I'm Callie, 32 years old.
I'm currently working part-time at a local pharmacy. I met my husband Lon at work and we got married 5 years ago. I quit my job when we got married at his request, so I became a stay-at-home wife. And even though I had always wanted to keep working after marriage, I finally managed to convince Lon to let me work part-time recently. For the record, we don't have kids yet. I'd love to have a pet since I adore dogs, but Lon hates animals, so I've given up on the idea. My husband, who never really liked me working, started commenting on the household for the first time.
Hey, have you been cleaning properly? The house seems dirtier. Plus, there's a pile of laundry.
I've been cleaning and doing laundry like always.
Really? Even today's dinner felt like you cut corners.
That's not true. I got caught up at work today and came home late. Cutting me off, my husband continued proudly.
Huh, what work? You're just part-time. I'm the one who's actually working. Take care of the house properly.
Even part-time work is still proper work.
I'm the one earning the money that lets us live, so don't talk back. See, I'm right. You have nothing to say.
My husband has always had a high sense of pride. He probably dislikes the fact that I'm working part-time. He started looking down on me because of it. And he keeps bragging about how we can only live this way because of his income. Even if he's the man I chose to marry, being belittled for working part-time every time is really frustrating. Anyway, my husband managed to take a day off after a long time, so we decided to visit his parents' house. Even though his recent behavior has been annoying, I was excited about the outing. I never thought it would turn into the worst homecoming ever. When we got to his parents' home, they warmly welcomed us. That night, after finishing dinner cleanup with my father-in-law, I went to the living room and found father-in-law fresh from the shower. My husband had apparently gone to shower. The atmosphere between father-in-law, who had been cheerful until now, felt heavier than before.
Callie, I heard from Lon that you've started working part-time.
Yes? I had a bad feeling.
Is there a problem with Lon earning enough?
No, it's not like that at all. I just like working. Is that so wrong?
You can't even manage the household, and you still want to work part-time? You're just burdening our son.
Exactly. If you have time for part-time work, focus more on home responsibilities. Look, your part-time job won't miss you if you leave, but your duties at home? Lon works hard, and you don't feel ashamed doing this? Mother-in-law has been a stay-at-home mom since we got married, so my parents-in-law and even Lon thinks that's how it should be. They probably don't approve of me working after marriage. Yes, sorry. I can't believe Lon spoke about me like that to his parents. I enjoy my job, and the people at work are all great. I wish they wouldn't treat my part-time work as disposable. I've been doing my part at home, same as always. In fact, I'm even more careful now that I'm working part-time to make sure I'm not causing any trouble. I also know Lon works hard. That's why I've been doing my best too. A few days later, I was feeling down, and I missed my parents. I gave them a call. I wish they lived closer so I could see them whenever I wanted.
Hello? Callie, what's up?
My father's familiar, gentle voice almost made me cry. But something felt off because Mom usually answers the phone. Dad, it's been a while. No special reason for calling, I just wanted to hear your voice. Are both of you doing well?
I'm doing fine, but your mom's knee has worsened a bit. She's otherwise in good health, but needs to rest for a while.
Is Mom okay? My mom had injured her knee years ago, but she was fully healed, wasn't she?
It's not serious. She stumbled on the stairs recently and hurt her old injury a bit. The doctor said she'd be fine with some rest.
Alright, tell Mom to take it easy until she feels better. And Dad, don't overexert yourself. I'll visit when I can.
Got it, thanks. You must be busy, Callie, but don't push yourself too hard.
I was glad to hear my dad's voice, but now I'm worried about my mom. Well, she's not ill, just needs to rest. As my dad said, they're both getting older now. I thought of my mom bustling around the house when I lived there, and I felt a twinge of sadness. Come to think of it, she tripped on the stairs. I suddenly thought about the layout of my childhood home. I never felt it back when I lived there, but now considering that my parents, in their 60s, are living there alone, it might have many inconveniences. The house is old, and the stairs are steep with no handrails, especially for my mom who just hurt her knee. It worries me that my aging parents live there, and it's not even an accessible house. The thought of facing another ordeal makes me shudder. We both have jobs, so we can't be too demanding, but I've always wished we could live closer to my parents. Considering my parents' age and the condition of their home, it might be time to think about other options. I decided to use this opportunity to build a new house for them. Truth is, I have some passive income from real estate. It was handed down from relatives, and my parents advised me to keep it a secret, because you never know what might happen. So I haven't told my husband about it. I've been saving it for a rainy day. I'm thinking of using that money to gift my parents a brand new house. I feel so happy to finally give back to my parents who have raised me. Though it's my own money, making such a big purchase isn't something I can decide alone. I immediately consulted my husband, Lon.
Parents are getting old. This could be a good opportunity.
He agreed more easily than I had expected. I was a bit surprised as I thought he'd say no. Really? That's great. Thank you.
Well, not sure if you, working part-time, can actually pull this off. See, you're silent again. Can you really do it?
I can.
Do your best then.
I was happy he agreed so quickly. But the way he belittled me for working part-time honestly made me angry. I thought my part-time job had nothing to do with it, but arguing would be a hassle, so I ended the conversation. The next day, I began making arrangements for my parents' new home. From then on, everything went smoothly with the contractors. My husband didn't seem too thrilled about it, but he didn't say anything, so I didn't dwell on it. Then one day, I noticed a significant amount of money missing from our shared account. It had been a while since I checked the bank account, so I updated the passbook. I had no recollection of withdrawing $5,000 this month. It must have been my husband. But for what? I'll ask him as soon as he gets home tonight. When he got home, I asked him about the missing money. Then I couldn't believe what I heard. Hey, I updated the passbook today, and $5,000 is missing from our living expenses account. Do you know anything about this?
Yeah, that. I gave it to my parents.
What? Why?
They seem to be struggling financially. We had some savings, so I thought it would be fine.
I didn't notice anything like that when we visited your parents' house last time.
Maybe they acted normal so they wouldn't worry about us. Got a problem with that?
No, it's not like that. This is about household expenses. You could have at least consulted me. My words must have touched a nerve. My husband sharply retorts,
It's my hard-earned money. I'll use it how I want. I don't need to consult you every time. You only work part-time and can't even handle things at home. You're getting a bit too high and mighty.
Annoyed with my silence, my husband slams the door and leaves the room. I always thought he left the house matters to me because he trusted me, that I was trusted. Yet he didn't consult me this time either. If his parents were really struggling, I'd want to help too. I wouldn't oppose it. It's been 5 years since we got married, and it hurts to feel like there's zero trust. Things have been awkward since then, but life goes on as usual. We've had our share of fights in these 5 years. This time, too, things returned to normal before we knew it. I did wish he'd apologize this time, but I didn't want to ruin the mood, so I stayed quiet. In the meantime, our new house was completed. I heard that with newer homes, construction to updates can be quick, and it turns out it's true. I was excited and immediately contacted my parents to finalize the moving date. Since I heard the construction would be fast, my parents had been getting things ready. My mom's knee is bad and dad's not young, so they were handling the lighter tasks. For heavy furniture and appliances, we were going to hire movers. My husband and I planned to help on his day off. Finally, it felt real that I could gift my parents a new house. Little did I know what was about to happen. It was when I checked my husband's schedule for the move.
What? Why are we going to your parents' house? We built this house for my parents.
What are you talking about? I built this house for my parents.
Don't act like you built it. You're just a part-timer. You don't have that kind of money. This house was built with my salary.
It wasn't a joke. He was serious. I'm sure I told him that I was building the house for my parents. Could it be that he agreed so easily because he thought it was for his parents? He doesn't know that I have passive income. At this rate, he won't believe that I built the house with my savings. I decided to tell him about my passive income. Well, actually, when I told him, he looked surprised for a moment, but then said,
No way that's true. You probably just wanted a new house and made up that lie.
He wouldn't believe me no matter what. Worse, he claims that since the house was built with his salary, his parents had a right to live there. The conversation was over before it even began. Feeling like I had no choice, I thought I'd talk about it once more tomorrow. But the next day, my husband suddenly stormed in like this.
This house was built with my money. You should get out.
What? But that house is... I built that house with my savings, specifically for my parents. Being told to move out all of a sudden really put me in a bind.
Well, you're just working part-time, so you wouldn't make it without me if we got divorced.
Divorce? Out of nowhere? For a moment, I couldn't grasp what my husband was saying. Smirking, he handed me a pre-filled divorce application. Then he left for work with a smug look on his face. My husband has been belittling me for so long. He probably never thought I'd actually go through with filing the divorce papers. He might think he's intimidating me, but I can make it without his income. Fed up, I filled out the divorce form and submitted it. I packed my bags and left the house, headed straight for my parents' home. They were surprised to see me, but once they heard the story, they welcomed me warmly. Because I moved back in with my parents, everything was set up sooner than expected. We started living together in the new house. I was a bit concerned that I hadn't heard anything from my husband, but since I already filed for divorce, I decided not to worry about it. A little while after I moved in, an unknown moving company showed up. Upon checking, I found out the items were being moved in under my ex-husband's name. Also, according to the movers, my husband and his parents would be arriving soon in their car.
They were planning to move into the home where I live with my parents without even asking. We may have been married once, but we're divorced now, so he's a stranger. Moving in like that without asking is both unbelievable and frightening. The movers were also confused. After talking with my parents, we called the police. The police confirmed that since the house was in my name and we were already divorced, him entering the house could be considered unlawful entry. When my husband and his parents arrived, they were visibly shaken to see the police. His parents seemed clueless, but my husband finally seemed to understand the reality of the situation.
What is going on? Lon, explain yourself.
He looked extremely rattled, getting grilled by both the police and his own parents. I'd never seen him so flustered. I didn't really want to have anything to do with him anymore, but I decided to submit something to the police. I don't know all the details, but from what I heard through mutual friends, he had a tough time. His parents had already canceled their housing arrangements, so they had nowhere to go. There were complaints from the moving company too. And due to the evidence I submitted to the police, things got even worse for him. It was proof of his emotional abuse. I had audio recordings from times he really got under my skin. After all that drama, I managed to secure a settlement in the divorce. My ex-husband? He's drained his already meager savings and is now living off his parents' support. Word got out at his workplace, making things super awkward for him. I used that settlement money to treat my parents to a vacation. They were thrilled, and so was I. I also invested the rest of the settlement and my savings to start my own business. It was a struggle at first, but now things are picking up and I'm getting some breathing room. So I finally decided to get the dog I've always wanted. Now life is fulfilling and fun every day. I'm genuinely glad I took the plunge back then. Off for a walk. Take care, dear. But there's another reason my days are brighter.
Oh, hi. Kelly, you're walking your dog too?
I met this handsome neighbor while walking my dog. Hi, yeah, I'm walking my dog.
Do you mind if I join you?
Not at all.